You're a tough little lemon. Loosen up, man. Get the kinks out. I wish someone would do this to my shoulders, actually. Hey guys, it's Carla. I am here again in my kitchen for a very special episode of That Sounds So Good, because today we're making the cover recipe. This is baked polenta with floppy broccoli, because if there's one way I like my broccoli, it is floppy. This is what I would consider a really fantastic vegetarian entree because it is filling and it is hearty and it has veggies and it has grains. So really something for everyone here. And the best thing about it is that almost all of the cooking time is very inactive. Broccoli goes low and slow. For a long time, it takes on a really wonderful texture and flavor. The polenta does not have to be stirred and fussed over on the stovetop. You actually just throw it in the oven. And then there's a few little topper whoppers and it's super easy for you. Okay, so I have about 1.5 pounds of broccoli here. The first thing I'm going to do is just prep it by trimming the bottoms. I also have going behind me just some water that I'm going to blanch the broccoli in. It's already simmering. But I want to use a lot of the broccoli stock because it is totally edible. It's going to increase your yield and it is going to reduce waste. You can use lots of other things. Let's see what I said in the book in the spinach section. The same process, the blanching and the slow cooking, you could use green beans, long beans, celery, flat beans, cauliflower, kale, fennel, carrots, cabbage wedges, or winter squash. I stand by all of those. But every recipe in the book does have a spinach, so it's like I was right there with you. So I'm down to this light green. I'm gonna get rid of my peels. I'm gonna keep these pretty stocky. They're gonna cook for a long time. They're gonna get soft. There might be some breakage and that's okay, but to just get it going, they're just gonna be in these nice long spears. So I've got 6 cloves of garlic here. They're pretty large. I really love garlic and there's not a lot of other flavors in the olive oil braising liquid. Broccoli has been stocked and my garlic is smashed and peeled and it's time to blanch and braise. All right, so the first step of the recipe is happening. I have a copious amount of boiling water here and in the book I call for a Dutch oven. Turns out a Dutch oven is any heavy pot with a lid. So I'm using this one today. It's one of my favorite pots, but any like pot you would use for pasta or anything like that. Speaking of pasta, you want to salt this water as though you were going to cook pasta. So like plenty of kosher salt. It's going to season the broccoli while it's cooking and it's also going to preserve its beautiful green color. So that's why we love salt. And these are just going in for 2 minutes. I know it might seem like an extra step, but it really does make a difference in the like silky luxuriousness of the broccoli at the end. And for such a humble vegetable, like it deserves its like shot in life to be, you know, red carpet ready. Already bright green. So adding the garlic to the water as well is going to temper some of the bite of the garlic. It'll give it a little bit of a jump start in the cooking, but it's more about tenderizing it, sweetening it up. It'll have less like sharpness in the finished dish and more of that sweet and the garlic spectrum that it takes on when it's cooked and not browned. 2 minutes. All right, everybody's been boiling. They got to know each other. They made some really beautiful broccoli garlic water. Gonna kill the heat. And I'm not gonna bother shocking this in an ice bath to stop the cooking or anything because it's gonna just keep going on its cooking journey. But it is beautiful and bright green, for the record. I don't need this water, but I do need this pot. So I'm just gonna drain it and I'll be right back. And we're back. Next step, going in with 1/3 cup of olive oil. There might be a little bit of splatter when the broccoli goes in because it's still wet. I'm also adding a little bit of crushed red chili flake. If you don't like spice, leave it out. You could add like a bay leaf or a little sprig of rosemary or a pinch of cayenne if you don't have red chili. Also salt and peps. If you wanted a quick saute, you'd be done now. But I want low and slow. I want floppy broccoli. I want grandma style. I want pretty much cooked to death. So I'm going to lower the heat to very low. Spin this around so it's even and throw the lid back on. Now that this is underway, I'm going to open the lid and check it about every 15 minutes just to make sure there's enough moisture in the pan, that nothing is burning or browning. And I will stir it and move it around, but not going to go crazy because I don't want it to break apart. I made those long stalks for a reason. So just like don't stir to death. All right, we're about halfway through on our floppy brock. Steamy, tender, gentle, kind of a khaki green now, and that's okay. There's still some rigidity in the stalks. So I'm just going to keep this covered. And it needs about another half hour. I have another Dutch oven. Any heavy pot with a lid is great. And 5 cups of plain old water. So the polenta liquid is measured because all of it is going to be used. It's going to absorb into the polenta. It's going to give it the right texture at the end. So I want to season this with the amount of seasoning that I want the polenta to have. Normally, if you were making polenta, anyone who's made polenta before knows that the simmering and the whisking and the stirring is like a constant process that goes from beginning to end, and it actually could take like 35 or 40 minutes. So very slowly while whisking, I'm going to add the polenta. And you at home can enjoy the wonderful sound of metal on cast iron. The reason that you want to do this slowly and gradually is to avoid clumping. But once the polenta is in the water, you've used the whisk to kind of individuate every little grain of the polenta. They have their own little water bubble that they're occupying. You really don't have to whisk the entire time. All right, now everything is in. It looks like a ton of liquid in proportion to the grains, but the grains are going to swell and absorb just like grains of rice would. And they'll absorb all of that available delicious salt and pepper water. Okay, that heat off, 325. And that's going to cook for 35 minutes while I toast the almonds and grate my cheese. I'm going to finish the polenta with some toasted, salted almonds. It's a pretty small amount, only half a cup, which my hand is telling me is this amount. A little bit of olive oil, just enough to coat. I'm just going to throw this in the same oven that the polenta is in and give them 10 minutes. I also need about a half a cup of grated parm that's going to get stirred into the polenta at the end. And I was like cheese shopping in my refrigerator and I found several specimens. So I'm going to start with the one that has the least amount of cheese on it, grate half a cup. This is the same grater that I used when we were shooting the cover. of the book, which we didn't know at the time, like what the cover image was going to be. We had tried to get a lot of options with a lot of different recipes, and we managed to capture just sitting on my dining room table with just my hand sticking in. I also need lemon wedges. I'm just going to cut a few lemon wedges for squeezing onto the broccoli later. Let's do cheeks. My almonds are done. My polenta is done. My broccoli is done. So my dinner is almost done. I'm just gonna let these cool off right here, where I will chop them. They're here for crunch, also for flavor, also for that little hit of protein. So don't go too fine because like you've got a lot of soft flavors from the polenta and the soft broccoli. Hot. It's not necessarily going to look the way you think it's going to look because it's a little sticky on the sides. It's a little watery on the top. So in the book, I say to whisk until everything is creamy and thick, kind of evenly. And that's a 1 to 2 minute process. It might be like a little bit thicker on the bottom and have a little bit more of the liquid on top, but there are no lumps. And if you like the sound of metal on metal, you've come to the right channel. Like and subscribe. It's creamy, it's totally tender. Sometimes when you have undercooked polenta, you'll get those like little gritty bits, which is not pleasing at all. So I'm eyeballing my half cup. And a couple tablespoons of unsalted butter. Mm-hmm. Yum. It's time. It's time. The moment has begun. I have my beautiful polenta. We're just gonna dish it up. Yeah, let's just keep going with that metal on metal thing. That's a luscious texture. Smells like parm and corn together, and that's a delicious combination. All right. All right. Okay. Let's do that for now. And then I have my gorgeous pale green, but very floppy and delicious broccoli. It's so floppy, in fact, that I'm going to use a spatula. Wow. Gorgeous. So like, yeah, some of the stalks are shorter than they were before, and that's okay because some of them are like this and they flop. Okay, I want all of those bits. Oops. Okay. So I have gorgeous platter of polenta and broccoli. I'm going to toss these almonds on top. So we have soft and sweet and corny and salty and healthy, frankly. Extra chili flake. You could also do this individually and everybody could add their own nuts and their spice as desired. The final step, a little extra parm. I always like to get a good amount of it on the counter as well. There we have it. Baked polenta with floppy broccoli. It's a That Sounds So Good cover recipe with a side order of our toasted almonds, grated parm. I do think you should pass lemon at the table and have everybody squeeze some over. I'm taking liberties because it's my house. Do you eat it with a fork or do you eat it with a spoon? I'm gonna eat it with a fork. All right, let me tell you about this broccoli. It's got heat and it's got like any cruciferous vegetable. So your cabbages, your turnips, your radishes, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your Romanesco, they have a sharpness to them. They have a little bit of bitterness, but when you cook them, it brings out all of their sweetness and their tenderness, and the flavor transformation is truly like exquisite and fantastic. So frankly, I can't recommend it highly enough. So I hope that you will pick up your copy of That Sounds So Good, and you won't even have to open it. You can just leave the copy with the cover right there and be like, that's the one for me, because this is the one for me, and it's also for you.